Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Jake. You can also call me Atrocious, and today we are going over the championship final of the Tokyo Championship Series of the OP08 format. We've seen top 16, we've seen top 8, we saw top 4 be a mirror match, and this finals is going to be the exact same mirror match with Red Purple Law on both sides. Red Purple Law dominating this tournament and continuing to dominate the OP08 format, really taking all spots almost. The second consecutive tournament that Red Purple Law has taken 10 or more of the top 16 spots, and in this tournament taking all 4 of the top 4 spots. Absolutely insane in this one. So with that there, we're going to be taking a look at this match right here, and just to be transparent, this is not my stream overall. I am watching the official live stream and doing my own unofficial English commentary as usual. If you want to go check out the official stream, link will be in the description below. Now, we've seen the player on the left's deck in action, I think 2 times now overall, but player on the right, I don't think we've seen player on the right at all in this tournament. So their list with those Uta Dawn sleeves is going to be a little bit of the unknown, but the player on the left is going to go first in this one. In the last match, we really saw the excellence of the 3-drop Charlotte Pudding. So we'll see if the players have any in their hands and decide to keep. Looks like player on the left, I think, has some Black Marias and a Tony Chopper blocker. That's about all I can tell. We'll see their hand in a moment, I think. Player on the right side deciding to mulligan, so letting fate decide what their starting hand is going to be. Didn't really like what they saw in that one. Maybe, I don't know, maybe saw the opposing player's game a little bit and found out a little bit of their deck list. Although when you're at this top level, you're usually along with friends of some sort, and usually your friends are sharing you information of like, oh man, this guy right here, he's got Tony Chopper blockers, and then whatever the player has on the right side, I'm sure this player right here is fully aware of the different techs and the different options to be able to add your own little spice to the Red Purple Law decks. Obviously, you know the skeleton, but there are those couple different tech cards. But looking at the hand here, just as I predicted, Black Maria is in there with that Tony Chopper. Also has a Reiju, Kid Killer, and uses Captain Kid. Reiju, we've talked about time again, a lot of times is the difference in games, and both players having a Reiju overall in their starting hand. This player on the right also having a Kid Killer, but has a little bit of differences in the toy promo law, the Gordon and the Zoro. So could get a little clunky with the lack of counter, right? The difference in these two hands essentially is that the player on the left side does have counter power in terms of the Black Maria, Tony Chopper. The Reiju has counter on it, while the player on the right side only has 1K. So going into this now, it's going to be a Dawn and I believe a pass to the right side. The right side is going to draw for turn, getting kind of that card advantage. Going to be drawing, I think that's a 5-drop Kid, and passing the alternate art that we're going to be getting in OP07. The player on the left draws a Law Blocker, which the Law Blockers saw a lot of play in the top 4 match. We did see those come down from time and time again, not necessarily to get 7 cards, but to get a blocker out. But the thing about this with this 5K swing is the player on the left side or right side is going to have a couple cards in hand, 7 cards in total. So thinking about now playing this Black Maria and Purple Law blocker combo, going to be very strong to be able to catch 2 cards in their hand right here. Black Maria, although we didn't see it in the last match, very good for when you want to play down a blocker or a character off of leader effect on the first turn that you're able to, your second turn going first, and especially because they took that life, didn't want to give up any of those cards, they're going to be catching them with that blocker law effect. Going to be a Gordon and Reiju, 2 huge cards overall in that game. The Gordon going to be really, really good in getting rid of several of these bodies that are going to be put down, but the Reiju instrumental because now your player on the right side doesn't have any draw. We saw the lack of draw in the top 4 match and how much it hindered the amount of cards and counter cards that the player was able to see, and right now just not a good start. I'm sure they're regretting a little bit seeing the Useless Captain Kid stay in hand. I feel like they maybe would have pitched that or the Law, but after a 5k swing right there is going to be taking a life on the right side. 5 cards now in hand. I think they got the Queen off the life, so the Queen could be good. Queen allows you to only be bottom deck through the Gordon and Raise Maxes. The toy promo laws or the Otamas will not be able to bottom deck the Queen in terms of lowering its power enough. So thinking about where they want to go at this 4 Dawn turn, no Black Maria to play down, no opportunity to really excel in getting the Dawn back if you do some bottom decking, especially because at 4 Dawn you cannot play the toy promo law and bottom deck something with the Gordon and Raise Max. I think one thing that you're going to have to do right now, this is something that I didn't expect. The Zoro coming down. The Zoro coming down is very interesting. I could have seen something along the lines of the toy promo law, bottom decking the blocker law, and then playing the Zoro down. But leaving the Zoro down, in my opinion, honestly does not feel good in general, especially because these decks have so much non-counter. I almost would always want to get at least a free swing in with the Zoro, because now you have a really good chance for it to be bottom decked, right? The player on the left now thinking about where they want to go overall. Could be hard playing this Reiju. If they hard play this Reiju, they would be at 5 cards in hand and be able to draw 2. This 5k swing from the leader is going to catch a life. It's going to be that Black Maria, and honestly, at this point, the Reiju being played down would be able to potentially find a Gordon or Raise Max to get rid of this Zoro, but instead opting for a Tony Chopper blocker right here. So 1 Dawn left in the active. Looks like they're going to be using leader effect, not bottom deck anything, but play that Reiju to draw 2 cards right here. It is going to be a Raise Max, so again, with what I was saying of you should play the Reiju. Oh wait, actually no, they couldn't have done that because they're ahead on Dawn technically, so they needed to play the Tony Chopper, use leader effect to get behind on the Dawn, to then play the Reiju off leader effect and be able to get some life. Excellent job by that player doing that. A good, correct sequencing, as you could say. But going back now to the present, the Law blocker is going to be doing a 6k swing, going to be blocked, or countered I should say, by the Black Maria and passing the turn off to the player on the right. The player on the right drawing a Charlotte Pudding for turn. So the Charlotte Pudding could be nice. I don't know if we'll see it come down in this one. Would be good. We could see the Useless Captain Kid come down. They're putting it towards the front, maybe thinking about playing that one. The Gordon or Raise Max could be nice, bottom decking the Reiju, right? You're more worried about the Reiju swinging more often than not than the Law, but put in a tricky situation about, do you get rid of the Reiju or do you get rid of the Tony Chopper, right? Because the Tony Chopper, remember, does have that Dawn ×2 when attacking, -1 of your opponent's characters by 3,000 power. So a card overall that, if sticks and stays on the field, is essentially a free Gordon or Raise Max every single turn. The Zoro, you're definitely swinging with the Zoro now. Maybe swinging the Zoro at the blocker law is a good option. Just trying to clear a couple of the bodies, because both players having access to a couple different rush cards in their decks could be something that we see here. It looks like the Useless Captain Kid 5 is going to be played down, and in Otama is going to be played. Otama, very interesting. Didn't want to commit the 3,000 power, but did commit the 2k overall. Very curious choice in my opinion, but one that could provide dividends. And playing down this promo law off the leader effect is going to put this blocker law at 3,000 power. So this 5k swing from leader is going to knock it out in that game. But only 3 cards in hand, 1k counter overall so far. With only 2 life left, the Kid and Killer extra effect on swinging for life is going to be online, so you do have to be wary of that. Could be a quick game like we saw in the top 4 match. But thinking about if they want to do anything else, I think, and just passing the turn, still not swinging with the Zoro, just being super passive. I feel like we've seen players do this before. We've seen red purple law players be slightly passive towards their opponents in terms of swinging with their characters. That Zoro is just standing there. Buddy thinks he's on the team. He's not actually doing anything besides be pressure. And with this queen that's being played, going to be drawing 2 cards after doing that Dawn minusing effect. Those 2 cards going to be an Otama and Queen, going to give you a lot of counter power and getting rid of the useless Captain Kid. Just too big of a body. You don't really need it at this point as Black Maria sticks on the field. And the Raise Max is going to be bottom decking the Kid, I think. Minusing the power on the useless Captain Kid. We'll see if that's who they end up going with right here. We could see a strategy where you bottom deck something else and then try to get the Kid to block, right? Especially right now, if you did minus the Kid, it's only a 3,000 power blocker. So if it blocks on this leader swing, you're going to be able to get that KO on that body, or your opponent is going to have to counter out a lot for it. And with only like 3 cards in hand, there's no way they're going to be countering out of a block. So going to probably either take the life or counter out with this Charlotte Pudding. And going to choose to block on there. Say, you know what, if it's going to get bottom decked anyway, I don't care if this Otama gets bottom decked, because, well, the Otama is not a swinging threat usually. Just too much Dawn when I don't have that much Dawn. So swinging 5 now with this Reiju right here. Going to be a Charlotte Pudding counter at this point. And with no Dawn left, could just see a bottom decking effect right here. Going to be using that leader effect, putting down the Kid and Killer, going to turn on to 7,000 power if they decide to swing, and then using the Black Maria effect. Looks like they maybe ended the turn because they only put out a couple Dawn. No, just putting out the amount of Dawn that the opponent had. No need to do too many steps. But that 7k swing is going to connect, get a blocker law. The blocker law is nice, but it feels like it's a little bit too late. You only have 5 Dawn overall, 5 Dawn in this game, and so playing down some characters is going to be tough. You don't have too much Dawn to be able to play down those characters, and with no draw, not getting a Reiju, you're not going to be able to filter this hand over some of the cards that you maybe necessarily don't need. Like, you don't need 2 Gordon Raise Maxes, you don't maybe need the Kid and Killer. You would love a Reiju. And so looking just like a tough spot overall for this player on the right side. Thinking about 3 and 2. I think the 2 might be for the Raise Max and the Gordon. Might try to do a scenario like they did of using one of the Gordons to minus the Queen, and then using the Raise Max to minus the Kid and Killer. Remember, the Kid and Killer, after attacking and when it goes back to your opponent's turn, does go back down to a 5,000 power character. So is something that you are going to be able to KO easily if you move it to a 3,000 power, but swinging 5 at what I presume is life, we're going to see exactly what the player on the right side decides to do. They're going to take that life. I think that's a safe bet. You're not super worried. A promo law with the new alternate on there going to be getting caught, and that 7k swing as well going to be taken, not opting to block after getting that Gordon. Going to be a minus on that Gordon for the Queen, and then bottom decking that blocker Queen right there to play down a Kid Killer. That 7,000 power body is going to be going at life. And they're going to take that life, and with the rest of the 2 Dawn, swing 7, going to be a counter of Sanji and Queen saying, you know what, you've had so many cards in hand, you've got the counter, but I am not going to be able to survive this turn. Going to be swinging 7 with the Kid Killer, getting that life, and then swinging the rest of the Dawn attached to their leader. Excellent job by the player on the left side. And again, like I mentioned earlier, really the Reiju was able to play that game and really put on a ton of pressure. Drawing cards, filtering, allowed them to really start going with their deck, you know, built into the Gordon Raise Maxes, built into the Queens, and then the Black Maria as well, doing plenty of damage in that game. We didn't see it in the top 4 match, but in this one, we saw Black Maria do tons of damage, especially being able to play leader effect as soon as possible, as soon as you hit 3 Dawn, and not fall behind in the game. Really provided a lot of problems for the player on the right side. But if you go ahead and bottom deck the Black Maria, right, instead of another one of those characters on the turn, that's another 5,000 power, 6,000 power if you count the Queen character on the field that you're opposing, and is so difficult to take down. So excellent job by the player on the left side. Let's look at their deck lists. So we've got the second place list right here from Tomoyo. Excellent job in their run through the tournament. This is a little bit, I mean, they're all somewhat cookie cutter lists, I feel like, at this point, but this one being what I would consider to be a good starting point if you're aiming to build Law in OP08. You've got what I call the skeleton of the list: Maria, Pudding, Sanji, Reiju, Kid, Sachi, Penguin, Queen, Kid Killer, Max, Gordon, right, in 4s. I do like having Sanji at 4s, but a lot of the flex spots, you know, you see this Otama at 2. You see a lot of flex spots where the Otama and Sanji switch up numbers, and I don't hate either or. One is more pressure towards minusing power consistently, and the other one is being able to get out bodies. Playing the 4-cost promo Law, I do really like this Law in this format, especially in this Law dominant format, because especially when you play down that character, whether it's leader effect or on your 4 Dawn turn, right, if you've got Black Marias coming in early, or maybe Charlotte Puddings helping you ramp up Dawn, the Trafalgar Law is really good at just doing a little bit of power without having to utilize these special cards in the Gordon and Raise Max. One thing the player has got to remember, though, although they didn't have too much counter in hand, it might have been worth countering out of the attack, the first attack with the Eustace Captain Kid, to avoid the handful that is Trafalgar Law, the 4-drop from starter deck 10. Excellent game. Really enjoyed that one, even though it was short. And let's move into the first place list from Akko. This list having a little bit more of spice than what we've typically seen from the red purple Laws, opting to play 2 of Tony Chopper. We saw it featured in this finals match. Being a blocker is a lot of pressure, but that Dawn ×2 makes it an immediate threat that a lot of players are starting to see and having to bottom deck right away. Still morphing with the same typical skeleton, again switching the Sanjis with the Otamas in terms of numbers. Like I mentioned, this player very obviously going more heavily invested into the power minusing aspect of this deck. Staying with the Gordon and Raise Maxes and the 4 Otamas, like I mentioned, but also adding these Tony Choppers is a real strong strategy, while not counting down the Laws, keeping the Laws at 3. And the way they were able to fit into this is taking away one of the Eustace Captain Kids and one of the Zoros in comparison to the other deck list. We've seen this deck list before. We've seen this player. I pulled up their deck list previously, so if you're a longtime member of the channel, or maybe you've seen just one of our videos of this tournament, you should be familiar with this list. But for those of you, whether you're new or old to the channel, thank you so much for watching. I super appreciated you jumping on to this tournament. From now on, I believe it's going to be like OP07 stuff that we're going to be talking about. The West and OP07 500 years in the future is going to be coming out soon. Especially because if you remember my post in the community section of our Discord, June 23rd is going to be a Fukuoka championship as well. Championships happening pretty much every weekend until Hokkaido. Then there's like a little 1 week break, I think, in here until Miyake. So I'm going to be trying to get out some OP07 stuff this week because it is Tuesday at the time of this recording, Wednesday when this video releases. Hopefully by the end of the week, get you something along the lines of a buy list, right? With OP07 coming out, a lot of cards are changing, and there may be some cards that came out in the past when you talk about something like OP06, OP05, OP04, 3, 2, 1, the extra booster that you are going to want to pick up. So I'm going to be making a list of that. And then as well, with pre-releases happening this weekend, I'm going to be competing in one of the pre-releases. I'm going to start making you a buy list, right? Looking for cards that you are probably going to want. If you have the funds to be able to do a buy list, these are cards that you're going to want to pick up for these reasons, just as usual. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. Hopefully you enjoyed the content. I hope to see you soon. And yeah, check out the rest of the videos on our channel, I guess.